Hello and welcome. Good evening, everyone. If it's evening where you are, welcome anyway to our new meetup, Avanscoperta's meetups of the series An Evening With. So today we are very happy to have, as you can see, him already connected from his studio in Treviso. We have Francesco Strazzullo. Hey, Straz.
Hi, Enrico. Nice to meet you
again. Good to see you again. We are. We've been doing a couple of live videos with Straz on Facebook the past months, so we are getting used to seeing each other every 2-3 weeks for this kind of events, which is nice. So, little intro about Francesco. Francesco is partner and developer at Flowing, and also a trainer of Avanscoperta. We've been working together for the past, I think, 3-4 years, doing 2 workshops. The first one was Frameworkless, and the one we are doing right now, it's decision making for software development teams, which is no coincidence. It's also the title of Francesco's book. It's a book that Francesco is currently writing and publishing with Avanscoperta publisher, and the book is available on LeanPub. I'm gonna post the links later on so you can check it out. But today we are here with Francesco, who is, as we said, in the process of writing his book, to present a brand new talk. Thanks for that. It's always good. Brand new talk titled Technical Decision Making Anti-Patterns. So we're going to find out very soon what this is about in detail. We can briefly say this is kind of one of those from the trenches talks where Francesco is going to tell us a bit more about the horror stories or success stories as well of what he's been discovering in his work as developer and consultant in the past years. Please feel free to drop your comments, questions, greetings, whatever you like in the YouTube chat. If you do that, it's not going to stop you from watching the video, so we welcome you to just let us know if you have questions at any point. We are going to stop a couple of times during the talk to answer them, and then, of course, at the end of the talk, we are going to read whatever questions are outstanding. So that's enough from me. Francesco, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Enrico. And thanks again to give me the opportunity to talk in another Avanscoperta meeting. Welcome to this talk. Like Enrico was saying, this talk is about technical decision-making anti-patterns. And just to let you know that my code name is Straz, so nobody calls me Francesco. It's very strange. So if you talk to me, you are free to call me with my code name. And the only social network that I'm using for work is Twitter. So if you want to talk to me, talk about this stuff, if you're interested in decision making for developers, you are free to contact me because my direct messages are open. So this is your first mission. Just if you want, contact me on Twitter. Like Enrico said, I'm writing a book. This is my second book, because I wrote a book a couple of years ago from the Avanscoperta's workshop. That was the Frameworkless front-end development. And right now I'm writing the second book, and this talk is an extract from the second chapter of the book. This is about anti-patterns, like I was saying. So the point is that I would like to make a talk about making mindful decisions. I made a talk about how to choose your next framework, for example. But, I started to write down this talk, with pen and paper, writing some thoughts down. And then I started to think, okay, I'm currently writing a book, and I know that decisions are hidden everywhere in a developer's life. It's about choosing frameworks. It's about not choosing a framework. It's about choosing the right architecture, choosing a microservices architecture or a monolith architecture, and so on. And so I just said, okay, I cannot explain this stuff in a talk. And so I decided to create a workshop with Avanscoperta. So I had more time to explain that. And then I decided to write a second book to have more and more time to explain that. So I said to myself, what I can explain in half an hour in a talk. Okay, what I can do is to explain how to not make mindful decisions. Because, you know, when you start studying decision making, you start seeing your own errors in making decision, and then you start seeing this error in the people that you met, in the team that I currently helping in making decision, and from these errors that I made myself and that I started and continue to witness in my consultant work, I found 4 anti-patterns that I want to share with you. I can do it. I think that this is actually doable in 30 minutes. So please hear me for 30 minutes. I think they will be quite interesting. Okay, let's start with the first one. The first one is called, I call it hype-driven development. So when people have to choose a framework, an architecture, or a methodology, whatever you want, this is a situation. Is React okay for this project? We need to create, I don't know, a greenfield project, and we need to choose a front-end framework. And someone can say, React is so 2020. We are in 2021. Why don't we use Shiny framework, the new Shiny framework, or the new Shiny language, or the new Shiny architecture? I think that everyone has been acting like the guy in the picture. I have done this error a lot of times in my developer life, a lot of times. Why is it a problem? What is the problem to just follow the hype and choosing a new technology and the newest technology or the most hyped technology every time that I have to build a new project? It may seem quite stupid, but the simple thing is that if I continually using new stuff, probably I will never become an expert in that stuff. Okay, while it's true that some principles are the same in every framework, in every language. Imagine, for example, all the domain-driven design stuff. Okay, but the point is that actually connecting to a database or printing down a table in a front-end framework, you know that if you continually change your tools, you are not going faster. On the other hand, there is also another problem. If you choose something that is hyped but it's bleeding edge, probably you don't have a community that can help you. That is exactly the point. The most sad thing when talking about hype-driven development is that these kind of errors usually last for years. You have to deal with these errors for 5 or more years because they remain in your code base for a decade or so on. One of the things that I do when I witness a team that is working with hyper technology, that wants to work with hyper technology, I challenge them and I say, okay, you want to use something that is currently very, very hyped or bleeding edge? Okay, let's try to exploit this hype. And how can you do that? The first thing to do when exploiting hype is to understand how hype works under the hood. This is called the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner is a firm consultancy agency that every year put technologies on this chart that is visibility and time. For example, blockchain, machine learning, self-driving cars, and so on. The idea behind the chart is that every new technology in the world, or for the most part, they follow this cycle. They start with a technology trigger. If this technology has some kind of success, they arrive to the peak of inflated expectations. Then after a while, these start to go down in visibility because, you know, startups start to fail. And the technology is not so ready as we thought initially. And then you have the peak down through of disillusionment. Then after a while, you have the slope of enlightenment. The stuff starts going up again until you arrive to the plateau of productivity when it's ready for mass usage. This is not a rule, okay? Not everything in the world follow this cycle, but it's quite important to understand that hype could be a problem, but it could also be exploited. For example, if you are a startup and you want to attract developers, you can choose to use bleeding edge technologies because, you know, developers like cool and new stuff. I think that working with Rust, it's way cooler than working with COBOL, for example, and you can use that at your advantage. But the point is that you have to do that mindfully. You have to know that is a risk in hype. If you do that just because you like to work with hybrid technology, you are just taking the risk without any kind of any kind of good deal from this stuff. So it's important to know how hype works if you want to work with hype. How to tackle a situation where most of the team is, how we can say, it's following the hype. Well, a stuff that I suggest when I encounter a team that have this approach to decision making is to use the innovation tokens. You can read about that in this famous blog post that I linked in the slide, Choose Boring Technologies. It is actually the contrary of hype. You can choose only boring technologies, but you can give free innovation tokens, for example, during the year. You have 3 occasions to build something completely innovative. Because, you know, hype should be kept under control. Okay, let's go on with the second anti-pattern. This is the complete opposite of hype-driven development. It's called the usual path. In this scenario, this is a complete opposite scenario. Here I have in the comics, I have a client that in 2012 wants to work with AngularJS. And okay, it's fair enough. It's 2012. AngularJS is quite popular, so why not? Then let's go fast forward in 10 years, and we are in 2022. What framework should we use for this project? And the client said, AngularJS. I say, again, really? You know that the long-term support for AngularJS, it's expired in 2021. Nobody's using any AngularJS anymore. So it's not a good idea. And the client said, I know, but please trust me, we can do any different. It's impossible for us to change framework. As you can see, this is a complete opposite of the hype-driven development, but this is an anti-pattern in the same way. Why is this a problem? Well, you know, the problem is what is called the golden hammer, like the Mario's hammer that you can see in the picture, or if you want a more generic a more generic way to describe the problem is called the law of the instrument. If all you have is an hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's the point. If I think that every problem is solvable with, I don't know, PHP and MySQL, everything, if all I know is PHP and MySQL in all my life as a developer, probably every problem that I will try to solve, it looks solvable with PHP and MySQL. That's the point. You have to try new stuff in order to understand and to learn new paradigms about how to solving problems in development. Why it happens? You know, this is quite strange because, you know, hype happens naturally. Developers want to try new stuff, and so it's quite easy to see why it happens. People want to, you know, try new stuff. I say, oh, I would like to try Rust for this project. Why not? It's cool. Yeah. But why? Teams decide to keep on going with the same technologies for a decade, also when that kind of technologies are not used anymore. Very long time ago, I worked with a company that was very, very good with Visual Fox Pro, Microsoft Visual Fox Pro. And they were very, very good with that technology. And they were so good with that technology that when it became incompatible with Windows Vista or 7, I can remember really well, to keep working with Visual Fox Pro, they decided to gift to their customers a computer with Windows XP, just to continue working with Visual Fox Pro. That's the problem. Why this happens? Okay, what I witnessed in the companies that when I observed this anti-pattern is that most of the time, the problem is deadline. Every team has some kind of imposed deadline they cannot miss. So they stick with what they know best. They do that because if they miss the deadline, and probably it will happen because it's an impossible deadline, they can just defend themselves because they said, we use the stuff that we know better. So what do you want from us? Another reason for this anti-pattern to happen is that the company does not provide any kind of means for training, nor time, nor money. So people need to study stuff during weekends or nights, so they don't feel confident enough to build something without a proper training. I would like to use React instead of AngularJS, but I just studied that in the weekends. I don't feel confident because I can't ask for any kind of training. The last one, it's quite strange, but it happens quite often, is that there are some strange and cumbersome company procedures to ask permission to build something different from AngularJS. I need to ask my team leader. The team leader have to ask the CTO, and the CTO has to ask the CEO, and et cetera, okay? That's another problem. That people doesn't have any kind of power to do that. They need to pass across some strange company procedure. How to tackle this? Okay, it's quite a complicated matter, but the first thing to do is to define some kind of training path for your developers and a budget for every developer in your company. Without it, you can't have any kind of evolution of your developers. The expert, the third anti-pattern. And this is quite funny because most of the time I'm called as an expert. But nevertheless, it's an anti-pattern when making technical decisions. It's an anti-pattern because, you know, there's some kind of strange things because an expert is saying something the team sometimes is not, convinced of what the expert is saying, but, the C-levels are paying the expert a lot of money to make that kind of decision. So, it can be quite an awkward situation. The point is that in every technical decision, context is king. And context does not exist for consultants. For most of the consultants, they cannot exist because, a consultant can't really know deeper, in a deep way, your company. So a consultant can give you a strategic point of view on the decision because they can't know the context of your company so much as the team that is currently working in the company. So how to tackle that? It's not, the point is not the consultant himself, it's not the expert, because you can call the experts, you can call consultants, but to solve complicated and very specific problems. We have, for example, we have a very, very strange behavior in our React application that is not working as we thought. It's not performant enough. So we call a React expert and we ask to solve that problem. But to choose a monolithic versus microservice architecture, or to choose the technology stack, is a strategic technical decision because you will have to live with the decision for years. So you can't delegate that decision to an expert. The last one is called rage-driven decisions. And to explain what I mean with rage-driven decision, I want to talk about my personal history because this is what happens when you talk with an enraged team. You just say, okay, well, I think that we can use React, and they answer, I don't care anything but AngularJS. Because AngularJS is the last framework that they use in the last project, and they are enraged with AngularJS because they think that every problem that they have with their code base is the framework's fault. Sorry, but it's not the case. It's never the framework's fault. And I want to share with you my story. When I started working, I started developing when I was a kid, okay? But I started developing as a professional in a company where I used to work with Java Enterprise technologies. So I was working with JSF, Java Server Faces, Spring for MVC, Prime Phases for UI, Hibernate for ORM, and so on. That classic Java stack for enterprise applications. And I wrote a lot of crappy code. It was really, really bad at the time, okay? I was very young, okay? I was, I think, 21 or 22. And I was very, very sad. And I thought that the fault was of the tools that I was using. I think that Java was a stupid language. I thought that Hibernate was a stupid framework. I thought that Prime Phases was a very, very bad framework for doing UI. And while some of these frameworks are currently not using so much anymore, like, for example, JSF, I started to propose in my company at the time a lot of new stuff just to not work anymore with that old technologies. The point was that it wasn't Java Enterprise problem. It was my fault that I wasn't good enough at the time. And it took some time to me to elaborate that. How to tackle this stuff? well, agile teams know this quite better. You can do a retrospective. And then you can, see the problem from a different point of view. So you can't just say it's the AngularJS fault or the Java fault, but you can see the problem from different point of view. If you can't do a retrospective every sprint, every couple of weeks, or every month, because you can't, because your company is not letting you to do that. But what you have to do is that when the things start going wrong, at least do a project post-mortem. When the project is finished, just take a deep breath and say, okay, what have gone wrong in this project? And trust me, most of the time it's not about the technologies that you choose. What these anti-patterns have in common? They have in common that all these anti-patterns are based on bad communication structure. If you rely too much on hype, you are not understanding that your decisions are impacting the business of your company. And this is a bad communication structure. If your company doesn't give you to the developers any kind of way to learn new stuff, for example, and then you choose the same technology ever and ever again, is bad communication structure and so on. Every one of these anti-patterns is based on bad communication structures. Of course, I can't really solve the bad communication structure problem in your company, because it's a very, very, very deep concept. But there is some tips that I can give you. And the point is that you have to find your way to deliver to your teams the right amount of transparency, the right amount of accountability, and the right amount of psychological safety. With transparency, I mean that all the information that are needed to make decisions should be viewable to anybody. For example, in Flowing, we are giving all the budget information to all the developers, because it's quite important to understand how their decision can impact the money that is flowing in the company. On the same time, we have a lot of moment to understand each other, so we have a lot of psychological safety. But on the other hand, we don't have any kind of project managers, for example, because we think that every developer should be accountable when working with clients. So you have to find your equilibrium, because to make mindful decisions, also in technical stuff, you have to have these three elements that are working together: transparency, accountability, and psychological safety. You don't have to be afraid to go wrong, or you never learn to make decisions. That's the main point. Thank you very much. This is all for now. This is the end of my talk. So I hope that you enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot, Francesco. It was brilliant as usual. To the point, as you said, of course, it's part of the book that you are currently writing, which we will now show again. So it's the right moment to write any questions if you have them. So we're gonna chat for another couple of minutes, but after that, the talk will be over, and we'll wave you goodbye and see you next time. But in the meantime, let me show the book. So this is the LeanPub page of Avanscoperta Publisher, where you can buy Francesco's book.
I have to say that my next chapter is almost ready. So
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
And so if you followed us in the live we did on Facebook, you might know that the day when Francesco is writing something is Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Next Friday, I hope to finish my chapter.
So there you
publish
go.
it. Yeah.
Taking shape nicely. And so, yeah, you'll find it on LeanPub this way. And just another quick thing is that we are also doing a workshop with Francesco. This will be delivered in Italian. The name is Decision Making for Software Development Teams, same as the book. This is going to be the first time we do it in 2 half days, because thanks to your feedback, we found out there was some need for a bit more space to, you know, do exercising and answer questions, etc. So we happily took that on board. And so we do a 2 half day workshop. It's going to be on the 15th and 16th of April this year. So it's just in about a month. So on Avanscoperta's website, you can find information on that as well. I'm going to share the link to that right now, just in case. Oh, there you go.
I think that we have a comment.
We do have a comment, yes. So let's read it. Federico, thanks a lot for this, first of all. So if you have any experience with it, do you see any anti-pattern in general the way ML projects are developed? Over to you.
Okay, I'm not an expert of machine learning stuff, okay? But I think that what I experienced with, we worked with in machine learning project with some kind of partners, okay, with other companies. And what I saw is sometimes people doesn't understand. Enrico, you're showing your screen. Doesn't understand what machine learning really means. I'm looking at from the client point of view. So I think that sometimes machine learning is the first victim of hyper-driven development. But I'm seeing that from the client point of view. That's the only thing that I would like to add to this discussion for now. I'm not an expert in machine learning development, so I'm looking at from the client side.
Okay, thanks, Francesco. Hope that answers the question. Otherwise, Federico, feel free to write us some more comments. We're going to wait a bit more as there's some buffer from YouTube to StreamYard. Then we do have another one indeed. It's Marco. Thanks, Marco. So how do you manage a bad decision already made in a team? Haha, interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Do you stay with it, or do you go back challenging the decision?
This is a very interesting decision. The very interesting question. Sorry, I say decision. I think 100 times in the last 20 minutes. So my mind is, focused on decision now. Okay, it depends on what is your, skin in the game on that project. For example, most of the time I am a consultant, so I don't have nothing to lose in the company. Okay, if I saw something that is not working, I usually say that because is why they are paying them. It's why they are paying me. Sorry. When it happens in an I part of the team, what I do is start with a retrospective. I'm trying to look at the problem from a distant point of view. Okay, so because it's very difficult to, if you are inside the team that made the decision, to not point the finger. So the first thing that you have to do is to look at the stuff from a distant point of view. And then you can decide if go on with it, because it was a bad decision. We didn't have to choose, I don't know, Rust for that project. Okay, but we have to deal with it because we don't have the money nor the time to solve that problem. So let's go with it. I think that I can help in this stuff is try to find. I know this seems stupid, but the only advice that I can give is follow the money. What I mean is, what is the business problem behind that decision, the bad technical decision? What I mean is, for example, okay, we decided to work on a very strange language. Okay, for example, a language that we can't find developers because nobody wants to work with, I don't know, CoffeeScript anymore. Okay, CoffeeScript, it was like TypeScript, but 10 years ago. Okay, so it's a compiler in JavaScript. It is a very, very bad language. I never liked it, but today it's not used anymore by anyone. So if we decided CoffeeScript at the time, what to do now? Or you deal with it, and you have, for example, pay the developers double because they can work with cool stuff, and they have to work with CoffeeScript, but they want more money. Or you can try to find a solution to not use CoffeeScript anymore. But to have this power, you have to go to the C-level with the money in mind, not just with the technical side of the problem. You have to link your technical bad decision with the money problem that is causing. This is a very good way to negotiate your position with C-levels. Or you can just change company, okay? This is always valid. It's a free market after all.
The last bit you said is the answer you probably would have done, like after the talk.
Yeah, exactly. We can talk privately, Marco. So if you want.
Exactly. Okay, thanks, Francesco. Sorry for showing the screen. It was nothing too private, but hey, that's what happened.
No. I just say to you because you know.
You never know. Exactly.
You never know.
Thank you, Marco and Federico. Then I guess that is it for today. So thanks, Francesco, as always. A great pleasure having you with us. We are going to talk again on the 19th of March. We're going to do another live. It's not going to be a meetup. It's a half an hour conversation we have, the two of us, Francesco and me, on his book, where he's at that point, what's the progress, some, behind the scenes of the life of the author. So it'd be great if you want to come along. We did the first two on Facebook, but that didn't work very well. We're moving back to YouTube, where we are now. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you get all the updates. Of course, we do promote our events on Meetup, Twitter, LinkedIn. We are a bit everywhere. But the best way to know about the videos is actually to subscribe to the channel so that you receive the notifications. And I guess that's it for today. So thanks a lot, Francesco, again. Thanks, all of you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.